This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Live tonight for the virtual Talladega Super Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to LSR TV's continuing coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. Happy that you're with us, as always, at a Monday night right here on your home for Sim Racing and the iRacing Esports Network. It is time for Talladega as the round of 12 continues, and as we welcome you into the LSR TV booth, it is, as always, Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, and Randy Chenneth along for the ride with you this evening. And Justin, that may be more true in the literal sense tonight than any of the other weeks we've seen so far this postseason. 1 week removed from a pretty contentious playoff opener for this round at Dover, where Daniel Eberhardt played spoiler, meaning that none of our 12 remaining championship hopefuls have locked themselves in coming into tonight's battle.
A lot of drivers wanted to get the job done at Dover last week. They couldn't do so to get into victory lane. With that wild card victory, it puts a lot more pressure on everybody in the postseason grid for this race, especially at a track where anything can happen and the big one can strike at any moment.
Qualifying session has drawn to close. Let's go trackside and take a look at tonight's LSR TV starting grid. And a lot of drivers opting to not take a time in a queue. But the best of them all, though, is Scott McClendon, the 51 car. We'll start this from pole. Is 52.197 good enough to lead Daniel Eberhardt to the green flag? The 90 will be on the outside of the front row, starting in second position. There you see the 12 of Skylar Shackelford. He'll roll from third tonight. Scott Brotherton to the outside of P4, and it is the number 42 Toyota Camry of Tom Morano, top 5 car tonight.
Sean Kalis recorded a 52.389 in qualifying. That put him 6th best on the board. The other two drivers recording qualifying times: Caleb Weekley in the 10 machine and Jeremy Miller to start in row number 4. First drivers in provisionals: David Washington will start 9th, and Connor Horn, who's looking to have a bit of a breather with a good run at Dover. That didn't happen. Now he starts 10th.
Jason Jacoby rolls from the number 11 position. That car, of course, will be identified by those red windshield banners, spoilers, splitters. That's so you can tell your playoff drivers apart. Kyle Kamer starts in 12th position as well for this one. Rick McBraun going to be given 13th. Eric Stanford starting in 14th position. And Shane Parrish through halfway through the field, P15.
Thomas J. George starts in 16th tonight. In front of him will be Jonathan Goodell in the 17th spot. Moving up into the 18th spot will be Cody Griffin in the 15 machine. Rounding up the top 20 starting positions, Anthony Frederick and Jeremy Bazemore rounding up those positions.
And continuing on through, you got Bazemore and Fowler through 22nd. Blake O'Connell starting 23rd. Todd Novosad 24th. And Jeremy Rittenberg's P25 just to go all the way through in this. P26 is Matt Miller with Andrew Ferdinand back in 27th. Dylan Jones in 28th. And Andrew T. Jones would have been given 29th on the grid, but it looks like he is not going to make it to the grid and maybe opting to start from pit road in this one. Let's take a look at your Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series playoff grid as we come into this race. Again, as we noted, no drivers safe and into the round of 8 yet. Highest driver above the cut line, Connor Horn. That's courtesy, Justin, of a P2 finish a week ago. You see the likes of Jacoby, Jones, and Chambliss. They're all pretty good, but down to that cut line, it is a 9-point margin. It's a lot higher than it could be, but when you look at the drivers below, Shackelford, Kamer, Miller, Cadell, they are all well within striking distance, especially because Talladega is due up tonight, and it's a coin toss on if you're going to make it all the way.
Yeah, especially with the risk of attrition and damage at this racetrack. I expect a lot of those drivers to try and keep it calm and keep it cool, especially for the first 2/3 of this race, and then try and attack. We've seen that a lot from the Aegis cars, for example, and some of the other teams. If you go too early, you can get involved in the big one, and that can shoot you out of that top 8 and drop you down below that cut line heading to the final race at Kansas. It's going to be a crucial race for a lot of these drivers tonight.
The reason drivers like Fridaj are only 10 points above the cut line, that's still a buffer, but it's probably the most dangerous spot he's been in all year, is because, again, at the start of the round of 16, they got 3 bonus points for all the wins they racked up over the 23-race regular season, and even though he won in the round of 16 along with some other drivers, well, they only got 3 points maximum to transfer in, so bad results at Dover has them sitting on the edge. as we get set to continue this round of 12. The pace car's off and in, and as always, we're happy that you're with us at LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. The number 51 of Scott McClendon's going to be in control of the field as they have to go all the way through that tri-oval, through that extra little bit of distance when you compare this plate track to Daytona to get to 2.66, and is further down the racetrack front straightaway as we say let's go racing at Talladega. Green flag in the air. Let's see how they sort out this opening run.
And with this drafting package, with the super speedways this season, both lanes can have a lot of momentum. A lot of drivers you can see, though, quickly getting themselves to the bottom before they try and work to that middle line. Guys like Shackelford, though, already want a challenge for this race lead.
He's right up alongside, challenging for the top spot. Now 3 wide of the very outside is Jacoby. He'll get the 90 car divided. We are 3 wide for the race lead on the opening lap of the race at Talladega. Jacoby, though, not wanting to work at the 90 car. He'll drop back down to the middle and push Skylar Shackelford on through the inside with an advantage by 2 car lengths. Everhart drops back on the outside in the 90, and here comes Shackelford again, trying to challenge at the completion of lap number 1. But it is McClendon pole sitter on the inside who leads after the first 2.66 miles.
We've seen, though, in real life today that tandem drafting can work. Can see that happening as well in tonight's race. But we'll also, I think, expect to see that 3-car of Jacoby be very aggressive. He was like that in official races all week. He was not afraid to make it 3 wide. He was not afraid to take advantage of holes. Right now, I think he's trying to get Shackelford down like that so he can then try and take this lead in the early going.
A little bit of a bobble there. The 3-car saw that, moved up, but it is only going to open a door for the 23 of Shackelford to go right through on the middle. So obviously no allegiances here as now McClendon goes back to the outside. There's those team cars hooked together. The 23 machine getting pushed by the 24 of Horn. Of course, you rewind to last Monday night at the Monster Mile. They took each other out. That's why Shackelford comes into tonight below the cut line, and there's contact. McClendon's going to get into Morano, and it is a big wreck just 3 laps in at Talladega.
Well, that came a lot earlier than I think we expected there. McClendon was looking very loose, and we've seen a very high track temp for tonight's race, 133 degrees, the highest temperature I've ever seen at Talladega. And that might have been a bit of a factor at these corner entries. The fixed setup can be loose on entry, and you see him in the middle as Morano actually pushes up too much, makes the contact, and then bye-bye, cars amongst the field.
You can see that flat spin there, but it was Morano who pushed up just a little bit on entry, and there's a little bit of a later dive down into the corner for Shackelford. So again, the 42 just trying to react to the car in front of him, pushes up a little bit. They get hooked together. Jacoby did a good job of going high to try to avoid that one, but would get clipped. And of course, you saw all the other drivers pile into that one. Morano, Griffin, of course, McClendon as noted, and Jason Jacoby pick up damage in this exchange. Jacoby, I think, is going to be able to keep on rolling, but we'll see how severe the back-end damage is on that car. Of course, as it has been all season. In this full throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, there are no quick repairs, so anybody who picked up damage in this one's going to have to deal with it all night long. As again, the big one strikes very early on, and it happened inside of the top 5.
Yeah, guys like Fredericks, Griffin already done. Morano already apologizing to drivers across the radio right now for causing the first caution of the day this early, but it's going to make things a little bit interesting now already. A quick caution flag here, and allows the drivers to save a bit of fuel. This was a 2-stopper projected entering tonight. About 31 laps was the average much these drivers can make depending on the pace. Now there's the chance to try. It's going to be interesting to see which drivers, I should rather say, decide to top off and try and get that fuel number where they want it to be, who elects to go to the back with this pit stop, and who elects to take no tires and go to the front.
And we'll see if those track temps are going to be an influence on that to get very early into this run. But everybody in agreement that pit stops are in order. No doubt that, of course, the drivers involved are going to be coming in to get some damage repairs, but race leaders in also. So Jeremy Miller, the number 23 car, he'll follow down to the pit lane with the 12 of Skylar Shackelford, and we'll see what the calls are going to be for the 12 machine into the boxes. It looks like he's going to go for fuel only on that exchange and can't win the race off of pit road, though. It's the 24 of Connor Horn, who spent a little bit less time in the box on a splashy to go, and that should rocket the Speedway Chevy Camaro to the top of the board.
Yeah, one of the drivers that took just fuel only, topping off and getting off and away. A lot of drivers, though, already are staying significant amount of time in the pit boxes at the moment, are taking 4 tires, wanting to sacrifice the track position for that extra little bit of grip and try and keep things nice and calm. It looks like those HBR machines, though, want to dictate the pace in the early going.
In the running order, you see, of course, Shackelford in that exchange. Miller, they're certainly doing what they want right out of the get-go. Some drivers who really benefit from that incident, the likes of McBride and Kyle Kamer, both drivers who were in the low teens when this race started. That'll be top 10 cars for the restart. Jonathan Cadell, somebody else who really benefits from that, came into tonight 16 below the cut line at the very bottom of the standings for the drivers in the round of 12. Again, any win will automatically advance you to the round of 8. No doubt that even if everybody survives this race, which is highly unlikely when you consider the playoff implications, still going to have drivers in a must-win situation at Kansas. But I think for a lot of folks here into this race, Justin, well, yes, the race win would really help. I think most drivers just want to get to the end, and if that car is in one piece at lap number 90, that may be considered a win in its own right.
That's the main key. You need to make sure you have no damage or very minimal damage to get to the checker flag, to not just finish the race, but to potentially have a chance to win said race. So many of these drivers, again, I wouldn't be surprised to see them ride along the back of the field, keep it nice and calm, drop to the back on this restart, and try and stay towards the rear end. But as we've seen with some of the pit strategy, some drivers wanted to be very aggressive, want to be in front of those incidents. The thing is, though, once you do that, you have the risk of burning a bit more fuel, up to a gallon extra, by being some of the lead cars.
I mentioned when we were going through the grid that there was no Andrew T. Jones on the grid. He was supposed to start 29th. He did indeed take the green flag at 27 cars in this race. Only Anthony Fredericks scheduled but failing to make the start tonight. So Andrew T. Jones is out at the racetrack in 17th position now, obviously intentionally not wanting to be with the pack for the green flag in this one, fearing an incident. He's behind a pretty beat-up number 67 Ford of Blake O'Connell, so showing that it may not be the worst of ideas to just drop back before we get set to go green flag racing and to obviously try to get yourself out of the chaos. But obviously playoffs are the big factor in all of this, and for the drivers involved in that last incident, Dylan Jones is actually one of the drivers who just brought his car back down to pit road. But aside from that, for the incident cars, McClendon, not a playoff driver anymore. He just missed the cut, finished 13th in the round of 16, needed one more position to make it in, so he's wrecked out in that incident, but again, not a playoff driver any longer. Neither is Griffin or Moreno, so the only playoff driver to really get affected by that was Jacoby, who got clipped on that left rear quarter panel. He had a 16-point buffer as the second-place car in the points coming into tonight, scored P12 on track. We'll see just how bad that damage is actually going to affect him.
Yeah, if we could take a look actually at Jacoby's back end specifically, I don't think it's too bad. It's not been a near make or break situation by having significant rear end damage, but it depends especially on the spoiler. Looking on board of this, for example, from John Fowler's front end, you'll see a little bit of that left front caved in. That's actually in part also pushing down that spoiler. That's going to affect his speed a little bit. Also affects that wicker bill. It's going to affect his ability to be the lead car for one, but as well potentially to suck up. If you don't have engine damage, though, you're in a good shape. As long as you also don't have too much front damage, you're also in a great shape. The positive when it came to this draft package, once it came in the springtime, though, Evan, on the super speedways, they could take a damage a bit more better compared to when we had the restrictor plates, from what we see.
And of course, that's good news to the ears of the three of Jacoby. And I suppose that if you are going to get some damage in the sim, back-end damage, a little bit better than front-end damage. Of course, if you start messing with the nose of that race car, you damage the radiator, your engine temps can really start to go up, and being in any sort of a situation in the draft, if not just driving on your own, could be problematic for that race car going the distance. He didn't seem to be all that concerned about it, or I'm sure he would have stayed in the pit lane for longer and actually just given up positions to get damage repaired. So obviously Jason Jacoby confident with what he's got right now, as he will restart in P9. Actually, despite the fact that he was involved in the accident, he restarts for this green flag as we get set to put 7 laps behind us, actually ahead of where he started this race at the drop of the green flag at the beginning of the night. He was run row further back, the inside of row number 6, in 11th position. A couple more cars at the very back of the pack coming in to top off on fuel. Looks like Andrew Jones is back in, Jeremy Rittenberg, and Miller, Jones, Everhart, some drivers, even Frenage, get to blend back out onto the racetrack. So you see those playoff drivers at the tail end there coming out of turn 2. Everybody wants to get this thing topped off as much as they can, maybe anticipating this thing to go green through pit stops.
You always want to have fuel on hand, right? Especially here at the back of the field. That's what a lot of these cars did here, and that's why you're going to see about 16th, 17th on back single file for this restart at the back of the pack. It's good to have that in excess because it's harder to save a little bit. You can stretch it to 32 or 33 laps if you save enough by being behind somebody, but it's easier to get to the number you want to when you have that extra fuel on hand, right? So you want to make sure you get that if you don't have the track position at that moment.
Certainly the peace of mind never hurts, and at a racetrack where there is very little of that, drivers will absolutely take every opportunity they can to get those little certainties to try to help their race out. Lights out on top of the pace car, going to dive in this time. Connor Horn's opportunity to control the field for the restart with some friendly faces up front. Curious if it is going to be an early go on the green flag. Typically, at Daytona and Talladega, you don't want to go too early. 24 car, though, again, get a hold of him at pace speed of 65 miles an hour through the inside of the tri-oval. As we look for the race start zone, it's Horn and Shackelford on the front row. Miller, Weekly, and Brotherton, your top 5. Green flag back in the air.
And having teammates, it really helps, especially in the top 3. You see right there, quickly Shackelford getting to the bottom side. That worked out exactly how they were hoping, but a lot of the cars from back just didn't seem to get a good launch. Already, some of them are actually losing ground and trying to drop to the back.
Yeah, single file stretch, you can see just how far the field is strung out. Really no challenge to the outside line, unlike on the drop of the opening green flag where we were 3 wide at this point into the quarter. It's the only car on the outside. The 12 is Shackelford. No space in front of Brotherton. He'll fill the gap and get on the bumper. The 10 of Caleb Wheatley. The 98 Carl Washington also going to get on through to the 12 car all on his own outside line. Now Jason Jacoby enters the picture. He's got a big shove by Fowler. Do they pick that 12 car up or do they go around him? They'll go to the very outside. 3 wide to let him through.
And we talked about Jacoby feeling comfortable despite some of that back end damage. You can see already the draft getting up to 190 miles per hour. Fowler willing to work with him to try and cut his way up through the field. And it just seems Shackelford wants to get that middle line working. The thing is, though, no one really wants to work with him. He's going to drop back more and more. The only cars that are even running that line inside the top half of the field are O'Connell and Bazemore.
Well, you can see with this move as well, they tried to use all that momentum to make the pass, but they had to go up the hill and it kind of killed their own momentum, so they're stuck down 3 wide with O'Connell and Atwood Bazemore, as you mentioned, filling the hole. Once they give the draft to the 12 car, maybe Jacoby and the 22 of Fowler thinking that maybe they should have gone with them. That 23 car now jumping up in line. So here's Jeremy Miller who wants to dance. The 24 car on the inside now going to have to work with Weekly. The outside a little bit more well organized this time at a turn 2 as they'll drag race down the Alabama gang back straight away. They are clear by 1. If they decide to go to the inside, there goes the 12 car. He'll undercut Miller for the race lead, trying to take it on his own, as there's that 3 wide challenge again with a head of steam for Jacoby.
And the higher you are in the straightaways, the faster run you'll get down to straightaways. The problem is you're going to lose so much time scrubbing speed in the corners, middle line on up. You can see it already in this trioval. Jacoby and Fowler, I think, need to at least drop back behind Bazemore. They just don't have the numbers to make that top line work as they continue to fight for this race lead.
Again, those cars at the outside will tuck back in line. They'll build up some steam, and they will try it again. But there is a big gap between Hornpush and Shackelford and the 10. That's why I say the outside is a little bit better organized, and it is a drag race. It's an old school tandem draft in 2 sets of 2. Down into turn number 3, and it is going to be enough of a push for Miller to clear for the race lead. He'll dive back down to the inside in 1. And he is once more on the bumper of the 12 car of Shackelford. So Miller looking to lead at the completion of lap 11. And with all, how confident these drivers seem just off the restart to really not want to mix it up. Thought that we were going to get single filed out pretty quickly. Doing a pretty good fight right now. Top 10 cars all within a second of each other. And O'Connell stole that lap lead.
Yeah, that's one of the main things I've really liked when driving this in my personal experience has been you can confidently run side by side, in fact 3 wide or 4 wide even here at Talladega for laps on end without risking a major incident as long as you give each other respective space. That's what these drivers are doing in this side-by-side battle, not squeezing each other too much since it's too early on and just racing as well as they can. That is not the best of moves.
And a big slide to the outside as O'Connell tried to make that car real wide. He totally blocked the 1 car at Jeremy Bazemore. Took them both out of the picture now as a resurgence up the middle line. Jason Jacoby now leading after lap number 12. Seems like every single lap it is a new car on the top of the scoring pylon. And I wonder just how upset Bazemore was with that move from O'Connell. Would it be shocking if those 2 cars aren't drafted partners anytime soon? 3 cars high, 3 cars low, down into turn 3. You see the 22 car thinking about going to the middle, not enough room. If he was clear to the bottom, Fowler probably would have gone for the race lead. The 23 wasn't going to back off for him. Instead, he stays in line. That stuns the momentum for the outside, and it's Miller seeing daylight at a turn 4.
Yeah, but that third line already starting up again. It looks like Bazemore and O'Connor will hook back up after the failed momentum block. But Shackelford getting really loose in that trioval off some of those bumps.
They're way up top, too. You can see Bazemore has the opportunity to just tuck down behind that middle line if he wants to. Not interested. On board with Skylar Shackelford. He'll 2-step to the outside of Miller. Side by side for the race lead. He'll have the 3 car in his bumper. No, there's the look out the back end. Now, yeah, Jacoby can't make up his mind. He was going to go high, then tucked back down. And again, it is those moments of uncertainty that hurt you. That middle line, because of that hesitation, was the slowest lane on track that time around. Inside was faster, outside was faster. Now that they've hooked back up, Shackelford got a good opportunity here to pick his lane, and once again he'll decide to go down to the inside, take that bottom lane away, lead at the start-finish line. But again, it is a constant revolving door. The bottom lane of the racetrack is the shortest way around, but it's kind of the safe line to play in. You're really not passing anybody down low. If you're making moves, you're in the middle or up top.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of checkups on that bottom side, actually. That's a good point. And you want to be on that middle line to keep progressing forward. But at the same time, if you're on the bottom line, or say on the line there like Daniel Eberhard for a split second, you're basically thinking, I want to make sure I'm nice and careful, just fall behind, maybe save some fuel, as well as get myself in an optimal position to say, if I need to avoid an incident, be able to duck down and avoid the wreck. If you're in that middle of the high line and a big one happens, let's say, you don't want to be there. Meanwhile, everybody except Jacoby and Fowler are now in the bottom line inside that top 8.
That outside line really just evaporated with only 1 car in each line. It is not going to work out at all, and it looked like Jacoby backed it off even further to get behind Fowler ASAP, but now it was a single file train down 4 to the outside. Again, Shackelford seems like he and the 12 of, or I guess he and the 23 of Miller keep going back and forth, and Basemore's tired of it. He's tired of seeing these same two cars trade back and forth for the race lead. He wants his own challenge. He's got O'Connell on the third lane, but it is Everhart through the middle. He'll push the 23. Now the 10 of Caleb Weekly. He'll be the third car in line on the very inside. And it seems like when you're 3 wide, the middle lane is always the place to be, at least so far, given we're only 17 laps in it on a long way from home still from Talladega.
Yeah, and keep an eye on these bumpers, too. They're not afraid to push in these corners, but Everhart not afraid to battle for the race lead. Highest running Aegis car already side by side. He's looking very aggressive early and fairly confident. This is the most confident I think we've seen this 90 all season after that win at Dover.
You can see that 12 car getting a little bit too flirty with the yellow line down there. He got sideways, and at the very front, it's Miller who chops down on Eberhard. I think that wasn't on purpose. He got loose off of the bumper. The one car came down and got into the 90, and Daniel Eberhard on board with him. Doesn't look like the front of the race car has got a ton of damage. Cost him so much time. He'll drop like an anchor outside of the top 9, and it'll take him a few laps to build that speed back up.
Thankfully, got just inside the draft of Caleb Weekly. It looks like he'll be able to keep this lead peloton's drafted for the most part, but that's the risk again of bumping inside the corners. You can do it with this draft package, especially in tandems, but with the Chevrolet's pointed nose, we've seen this in real life today. You hit that nose at the wrong spot, it can shoot you around compared to, say, the rounded edge of the Ford Mustang. That came to play a little bit on that middle line the last time by. Now that those two Chevrolets are bumping 1-2.
And obviously, both of them have kind of been on counter sides of battles for the race lead, so interesting to see Bazemore behind that 23 for the first time, but as they suspected, that wasn't going to last long. He'll go to the outside. He's got O'Connell and the 20 of Brotherton with him. Watch that 3 car, though. He's not in the picture yet. You'll see him coming up. There he is, the blue number 3 of Jacoby. Wants to get to the 23 as soon as he can, but he's not even going to help him. He'll take his own line through the middle as they all get by the 23, and Miller will go for the race lead to P6 in just half a lap.
Able to connect to his teammates, thankfully, but it looks like Jacoby's seen an opportunity, tried to take it, and he's right now trying to carry a huge run to the back bumper of that one machine. I'm surprised how much swapping we've already seen in this run so far. Back and forth for this race lead. No one's really stuck to one line this entire run so far.
And well, yes, it's been a good racing up in the front of the field. You notice on some of those wider shots that it is not everybody participating in this. It's really a top 9, maybe top 10 group if you want to include Everhard, who is kind of struggling there. You can see him going up top, trying to get whatever draft he can. 12th position on the back, single file. You can see they are side by side, but I don't really think they're fighting that far back in the back. They've dropped some 2.5, 3 seconds off of the race leaders. A lot of playoff drivers back there not wanting to mix it up. Only 20 laps into the race. So the guys up front are putting on a show. A majority of the field not interested this early on.
Yeah, the guys a couple seconds back. They're the ones waiting until the end of the race to see what happens here, knowing it's way early in this event and not wanting to risk any incident. Already, though, Miller has constantly, in fact, really all the HBR cars have constantly wanted to try to make that middle line work whenever it goes single file like this. It seems for the most part it's working as Horn gets really low down the racetrack.
Way down below the yellow line, had to pull that thing back up. Of course, cannot advance your position below the yellow line. We all know that story for this weekend's Truck Series race. 24 just got a little bit out of shape at a turn 2. Didn't lose anything, didn't gain anything. He pulled it back up in line. No harm and no foul there. He is about the number 5 car in the low line train. Only the 23 of Miller trying to hang on the outside. He's got Everhart coming with them. And speed difference there. Gave him a good shot to the bumper as Jacoby had the advantage on the bottom line. Let's see if 2 cars up top are going to be strong enough to form a real challenge to these cars on the inside lines. He gets some separation down. There's a good shot. He's right up on the bumper. A little bit of a bump that time, but outside once more. Better than 3 in the 22. Not that well coordinated. You do see Miller tucked down for the race lead, leaving the Donnie car up on the outside.
That was actually a good effort by that 23 car to side draft his way there, but it looks like Jacoby and Fowler saying, we don't want to work with you, purple car. Drafting their way to the middle line, working together again, just offset to the right to make sure of those temps, and back to the race lead once again. Miller wants to lead some laps here, getting a bit greedy, but right now Jacoby has a friend in Fowler willing to work with him, it looks like, in this early going.
And it's interesting, though, to see those two drivers be pretty committed to one another. As soon as the 23 came down, it's a move that we've seen Miller do a handful of times tonight. They instantly went to the outside, stayed together, took the race lead back. And again, I mentioned it just not long ago, if you're running on the bottom, you're going to get passed for the race lead. You can see those cars on the outside actually physically pushing, but there's a little bit of space between those at the bottom. You're just not going to be as fast. But it's very clear that Jacoby and the 22 of Fowler are working together tonight. We'll see how long that partnership lasts. And based on the fact that I believe, Justin, they're on the same radio frequency as one another, this is an alliance that they want to go the majority of this race. I'm sure at the end of the race, at some point, the gloves are off. But right now, I would not be at all surprised if those two drivers try to stay pretty close.
Yeah, they got to be telling each other, I'm hot, I might need a swap, or I can give you a push, or trying to tell each other, this run is coming up behind you. They're trying to coordinate all of the runs together to keep themselves up at the front. We've seen this, though, with Jacoby working with drivers you kind of don't expect him on these super speedways. I believe it was the last super speedway race where he worked with Ashton Crowder, for example, as well as one or two other drivers in that specific race. So he's willing to unite drivers that might not be a part of larger organizations to work with them to battle up at the front.
And that has been, not to the specific context, but you talk about teams. Teams have been a big factor the last couple of weeks with dueling teams with larger car counts and representations in this series, dueling against each other on the racetrack week by week, fighting against each other in hopes of being, the team that has their driver win the Full Throttle Cup. And nice to see some of that mix into the fray and a little bit of drama at times. And certainly this is a racetrack where alliances help you. So if you're not a driver with some of those bigger organizations, you do need to kind of go out and find friends on your own. And that is a key to success in a race at Talladega that has opened up so much again because it is still only this top 9 or 10 group that are actually battling for the race lead here. Your top 10 over the second, and then it is quite the jump back to David Washington, 11th on the back again, with so many cars intentionally riding around in the back. These drivers have space to make these moves, Justin. If we had all 25, 30 cars up here in this group, you'd be nose to tail, 2-3 rows deep, and of course, and 2-3 rows wide even, nowhere to go. So because so many cars are backed out, it's allowing these 10 cars that are actually still out here racing to make some of the moves that they are, because there's a good amount of space for them to work with.
Yeah, there's lots of space to make moves or be very bold, like Jacoby trying to come back 3 wide again with Fowler, for example, and ditch Miller here. So if there was, like you said, 25 cars, you'd be in a massive situation where you don't have space, where you risk an incident with how tight it can be in the pack in that kind of scenario. So these drivers taking advantage of that space, but we're slowly approaching that pit window, slowly but surely. Already 27 laps coming down, this time by the stripe.
In this race, of course, 90 laps in distance, and not the only time we've been racing at Talladega Super Speedway this year. We saw Todd Novosad take the race win in late April earlier this year. It's the 9th race on the calendar. Todd's only victory so far in 2019. We talked so much about the 12 playoff drivers that still make up a good chunk of the field, but of course with the round of eliminations 2 weeks ago, more than half of the drivers in the field tonight are non-playoff drivers. And if there's a racetrack where they're going to continue to play spoiler and maybe back up Daniel Eberhardt's effort to keep Connor Horn out of that automatic bid to the round of 8 by beating him in Dover last week, then it could come tonight, and Miller way to the outside, barely with room to clear Fowler. That was almost real bad.
Yeah, that was something there. He knew that those two cars were not working with him and seen the run and said, you know what? I want you to finally work with me and just cut across that front end. And now that's really checked them up. Looks like they avoided any damage though on that incident there as they go side by side for the race lead. That's not what you want to see though in this pack, and that's not how you earn friends for the end of that race, because part of the way Novosad won that race, he got the right push at the right time. Cadell saying at the time, basically who couldn't get the chance to get a run for the race win, gave him the push, gave him the checker flag.
And of course, that puts not only, if you're driving your race car across 3 lanes like that, that doesn't really put you in a great position, but you're almost daring that other guy to hit you. 29 laps into the race, you're going to get that break, because even though the guy's probably not pretty happy that you're cutting across his nose, killing his momentum, and if they get together, nobody wants to be making contact either. I mean, he's very aware that if I kind of stand up for myself and stay in the gas, if I wreck him, there's a good chance that I get a wreck too. So he has to back out of it and kind of bow to him. But I promise you that John Fowler and still in that tandem with the 3 of Jason Jacoby, and they continue to work together. We're on the inside, now they're working the outside, and does actually look like that 22 Chevy's got a little bit of front end damage from that exchange, whereas Miller's back end seems to have gotten off scot-free. Fowler's not going to forget that. Don't count on him to be your help late in the race. He'll know who to work with and who is wronged him over the course of the race. Race car drivers seem to have a knack for doing that.
Yes, indeed, but take a look at tandem drafting on that outside line. Here comes Eberhard. He's found one of his friends, and that is Dylan C. Jones that is saying, put me to the front before we jump down to the pit lane.
You can see 3 wide, 3 sets of 2, and on the very outside, Eberhardt and the 03 of Jones. These cars were outside of the top 10 last time at the stripe, and that time it was Eberhardt to the point. What a huge run, but he wasn't committed enough to bring the SK Sim Racing fellow car down with him. Eberhardt jumped ship and went down to the bottom line, and now Jones is going to get that support by the 23. The 3 car of Jacoby thought about going up there and stay down with Fowler, so no surprise that you talk about tandems. The 90 and the 03 car found each other.
Yeah, you mentioned they came from outside the top 10. They were about 15-20 car lengths back, heading on the exit of turn number 2. That's how big of a run they got by tandem drafting, and how comfortable they were with the temperatures just towards the edge of the red at that point. But Dylan C. Jones is to the point to the field now.
He is all the way to the front from a 28th on the grid. Almost all the way for the back to the front. Only driver that was slated to start lower than him on the grid was Jones, the other Jones, Andrew Jones. But of course, as we mentioned, he did not take the green flag with the field starter from pit road. So I guess you could say Dylan Jones for the back of the grid to the front of the field, and Miller again trying to force his will by coming down. But the 03 car, having none of it, stood his ground and maintains for at least another couple hundred feet. Now the 23 comes in front of Eberhard and splits those two apart. I don't think Miller's concerned with making any friends.
Well, at the same time, he's one of those drivers below the cut line to make it to the round of 8. So he's showing his hand a bit early. He's not willing to give up too many positions or any track position whatsoever. He wants to stay in the front all race long and be there all the way to the checker flag. Here's the thing, though. He's got to be careful. He's going to make it there and not lose any potential friends from other teams.
And at least in these early parts, this is kind of the alliance part of the race where, it's been easy for us to identify who's working with who. And it wasn't that long ago, Miller had some teammates around him where he looked a little bit more committal to staying with them and being on some sort of prearranged strategy. But he's kind of gone off the rails at this point in the race. 33 laps in, past 1/3 distance in the Sim Racers for Mental Health at 90 at Talladega. Basemore peeking to the outside. And Justin referencing back to the yellow flag we saw earlier. A lot of drivers came in to top off, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't change all that much in the strategy. Still looking at a 2-stop race, and at the point now where that window is open, but I think the drivers will hang off for a little bit longer.
Yeah, that basically extends the window about 4 or 5 laps for the first pit stops. That time is now. Blake O'Connell signaling he's ready to come down. This time by, he's in that 67 car just behind Brotherton. So pit stops are starting now.
And he's not going to come in alone. He's got some cars down with him. Eberhard in as well. The one of Bazemore sliding to the commitment cone. It's Brotherton, Bazemore, Eberhard, Washington, Freenage, Kamer, Stanford, Parrish, Kalist, Miller, Rittenberg. Pretty much that entire back 2/3 of the field down pit road. We saw these drivers, Justin, before we went live, actually practicing their pit road entry. And most of them were able to get down to speed without incident at that commitment cone.
Yeah, but at the same time, you make sure you get in the box. Guys like Bazemore and Parrish overshot their boxes. And that's the difference between maintaining the draft and losing it completely there. That could be huge if they don't get out of in time here as the next drivers duck down and try and get down to that speed limit. Remember, just 55 miles an hour at that yellow cone.
They were too wide there with Jacoby, Miller, Horn in as well, Shackelford, Weekly, Fowler, and Jones. So that may just be everybody that was on the lead lap in 2 fellow swoops. And again, interesting that it was the group behind your race leaders. As you can see Horn getting awfully close to the pit wall. I wonder if he's still going to be able to service the car. No, he's got to back out of it, not in position to get service. He actually went all the way through his box. We were on board with him for that, and that is going to cost Horn a ton of time, because the biggest thing about pit stops at Dega is you need friends and family. And by coming down pit road with a group and making a mistake, he'll be all on his lonesome when he gets back out there.
Yeah, it took him some time to get himself in reverse there. That's about 5-6 seconds. Now he's got to hope for some luck. He's only coming out right now. This is way behind everybody else by 10+ car lengths. He's not going to have the draft. And the drivers that pit last time by, they're zooming their way right on by. Washington now leading this group with Eberhard.
And now we see, where all this blends back out. That Cadell group significantly further down the road than all of your race leaders here. So there really is, a change of the guard, if you will, for some of the middle portions of the pack. But up front, it is going to be the same group. That pack that you're looking at a turn 4 right now is still the secondary group of race cars. The drivers that include a lot of your playoff contenders that have been taking care of one another and laying back. That time by at the start-finish line, it looks like Jason Jacoby will cycle back through to the race lead. The final group of cars on pit road, George, McBride, and Cadell are in. They were the only 3 holdouts, and once they get their service done with another mistake, the 9 car of George, too deep into the box, he'll have to reset. Not good for a bubble driver.
Yeah, and that's another couple seconds lost by another one of those drivers here. But here's the thing with that group. 4 cars are in that drafting tandem. Everybody else in the pack is behind them in the 190s. So here's the thing. Once everyone gets up to speed, they're going to reel in these drivers and fairly quick. They're only up the road by a couple seconds or so. So I'm curious to see how long it will take everybody else to get organized and catch up to Jacoby and company.
I was curious as well with that last group in particular, because it was just a 3-car group, if they would kind of sag back and not really leave George to the wolves. Again, they really could have just abandoned him there, but I think that 5 machine Rhett McBride did wait on him a little bit after he also made a small mistake. So 2 mistakes, honestly, kind of better than just one of you making a mistake, because McBride and George will still be together, and they're not going to be that far away from that trailing pack, which, despite the fact that they've been pretty calm all night, and you're seeing a side-by-side battle for the race lead with that number 3 machine of Jason Jacoby. Once again, going to the top of the scoring pylon and single filing out with both he and Jones clearing. That second group looking pretty racy, at least off the get-go here after pit stops. Again, still at least 1 more to go if this race is to stay green. So far, though, pretty good off of that only yellow flag we've seen tonight.
That second pack actually closed 0.8 of a second last time by, so they are closing. It's going to take them a couple laps or so, though, and when they catch up, it's going to be curious to see how these 4 drivers react if they try and stay to the bottom or if they try and react. Most of the time we see these drivers try and get themselves swallowed up where they're going to be inside the pack and still in fighting position. I think that's what they're just waiting for. 4 to 5 mile an hour difference in speeds between this pack and the second one.
And we'll see if this kind of scares this group. Again, their whole MO has been stay out of trouble, stay clear of the action up front, and of course you can see visibly how much closer they are. For the longest time it was, once you got outside of the top 10 and you were looking at 2-3 seconds of a difference. But another big thing is it's the lead pack that has really suffered here, because as Frenage will push the 98 of Washington on board with the 98, look at the speed differential as he'll get boxed in and he'll be forced to let off. But it was a 10-car breakaway, so half of that lead group, Justin, really loses out in this mix. That's really a big factor in why that second group caught up so fast, and Frenage not interested. He goes right to the fence and backs out of it.
Yeah, he's not liking what he's seen up front here, because his own teammate in Eberhardt, again, trying to make it 3-1. Can't make anything work, though. And this is where it gets very racy again. But you've seen the 2 HBR cars force it side by side. That kind of forced them in a good situation. But the Aegis cars decide to drop to the back.
And they went to the apron and dropped out of it, and this is what I figured, because with an entire pit stop cycle still to go, probably isn't the time to be doing this. Again, I think that typically that second pack getting a big win in the pit cycle like this is good news, but they don't want to be up here. That's very visible. So first it was Frenage at the outside, and now it's the Aegis cars dropping to the apron to get out of Dodge. There are some new players in the battle for the race lead, but it was those cars who dropped out of it as Jacoby pushed by Fowler, challenging Miller for the race lead.
And Jacoby has been one of the drivers that wants the lead laps today, along with Miller and a couple of the other HBR cars, it seems. Again, him and Fowler hooking up, and again in a good position. But look who's that third car. It's Andrew T. Jones, who started on the pit lane for today's race. Got the caution when he needed it to. If it stayed green, he might have lost the lead lap, the lead lap rather. And now he's inside the top 10. Sometimes starting the pits can work out, sometimes not. It was the former for him today.
Looking at this race, 24 cars still on the lead lap. Matt Miller, the only driver who really got lost in that exchange. He's all on his own, so he may be the only party hoping to get a yellow flag quickly here, or he will be lapped shortly. Other than that, there was McClendon, Moreno, and Griffin who were involved in the opening incident. They all had to take their cars behind the wall and will DNF this race at the back in 25th, 26th, and 27th. But everybody else on the racetrack doing a good job so far. Jacoby pushed by the 22, will dive down and go to the race lead. And you see that move, and you might think, well, if he's working with the 22, why would he go down without him? But I think Fowler and Jacoby both realize that now Jacoby's going to drop to the bottom, kind of stall out down there a little bit, and the 23 Miller is going to get in between them. Fowler would have then kind of assumed the lead position on the outside and hooked back up, and instead Miller kind of screwing with these guys, getting in between them, makes his own pass on the 3 car.
Now he's got Andrew T. Jones there as well to fight, but Miller going to be able to hold on to the bottom side for the race lead. But really, you brought up a good point. Why not stay together? A lot of times in these partnerships, you'll have drivers say, if you get clear, take it. That was the signal I think Jacoby got the last time by. Fowler this time waiting with Andrew T. Jones with a huge one to get to the bottom side to take the race lead.
And look at the names in this group. Andrew T. Jones, the 64 car, from starting on a pit road to the number 2 position. As the next time by, we will be halfway home from Talladega Super Speedway. The 10 of Weekly in the mix as well. Brotherton, O'Connell, it is kind of reset. That big shuffle that we saw off of the pit stops has gone away. Those top 10 names are back to the group that we were familiar with, and the cars that want to be behind have gotten out of the picture.
Yeah, right now they're already as much as about 2 to 6 seconds back, some of them, knowing how much aggression there is 3 wide again for the race lead. Miller is really wanting this race lead so bad, and that's why so many of these drivers are staying back in case it gets a bit ugly here. They still have one more pit stop to go as they reach the halfway point this time.
And those pit stops would come at around lap number 60, and of course the math works pretty easy on this one to split your pit stops into 30 or so lap stints over again with that yellow flag early in this one, kind of pushing the strategy back a little bit. Lap 60 is your number. You could pit there and go the distance, but you would expect it maybe to be closer to the 65 to 70 range before these drivers actually commit to making this thing official and race it out for the checkered flag for what would be race number 28 on this 2019 calendar. 3 wide for the race lead now. Basemore, O'Connell, and Fowler way up top. The 20 car of Brotherton preventing Fowler from joining the party as the one in the 67 car come down.
This has been some great racing, though, throughout this entire battle, even with all the shuffling and a lot of drivers staying back. A lot of names you usually don't see fighting for the race lead, but with the super speedways, that's the equalizer. This draft with this package can really put a lot of drivers you normally don't see in the conversation. Basemore got that lead lap this time in the 1 car.
So all these drivers getting a good share of a bonus point at a time for leading the lap. Again, nobody's shocked that you're not going to see a driver go out and lead half of the race here at Dega compared to what you're seeing in most weeks. But the playoff drivers could make a difference. But the non-playoff competitors, they really don't care about leading the lap at 47 as Fowler went up the hill. Again, at any moment, this thing could get ugly, but they are definitely putting on a show. Past the halfway point at Talladega Superspeedway, let's take a look at our Ford Entertainment Group midway race break of 47 laps down. From Lincoln, Alabama, your race leader that time was Jeremy Basemore atop Miller in second position. Blake O'Connell pushes him in third. Kayla Weekly's fourth, and Scott Brotherton in 3 wide for the number 5 spot. John Fowler, topside, P6. Jason Jacoby is 7th. Andrew T. Jones is 8th with Skylar Shackle for 9th. And Todd Novosad with a great view of this battle, rounding out your top 10.
The car at 11 spot, John Goodell watching this battle with a new sponsor on the machine, Extreme Sim Racing. Just behind all this, Andrew Freenosh in 12th position. Kyle Kamel lined up with him at 13th. As well as Stanford, Dylan C. Jones, David Washington, and Daniel E. Eberhard, all teammates at the very edge of the draft, about 2 seconds back. 6 seconds back is Connor Horn, Rhett McBride, Thomas J. George. They're inside the top 20.
And continue it on through. Jeremy Rittenberg's 21st, Shane Parrish is 22nd, and the final car on the lead lap. Actually, no, Kayla's 23rd. Miller is still on the lead lap, not for much longer, in P24. And then as we recap not that long ago, McClendon, Moreno, and Griffin out of the race. P25, 26, and 27, all in the garage. Still watching a 3-way battle for the race lead, but that's been on top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join these 600 plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group build. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Go online to FEGPC.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your builds quoted today. Happy we were able to sneak that midway race break in there, Justin, but these cars wadded them up for us. And, of course, the top 10, at least, where all the action's going on is different totally than it was those 2 laps ago. But that's why the interval's at the top of your screen. And you can see for O'Connell, only 2 laps led as he looks to lead at the completion of lap 50s this time by 40 more still to go. And I feel like that little bit of edge that we saw for the pit stops has calmed down a slight bit. We're still 3 wide, don't get me wrong, but nobody's really pushing and leaning on each other quite as much when they really wanted to sustain that track position immediately after the service.
I mean, just as you make that point, where did Horn come from? He was 6 seconds back just a lap and a half or so ago. He has pushed his way just about by himself up inside the top 10. So a couple drivers are saying we're getting close towards the pit window green light at about 30 laps to go. I want to make sure I have track position at the front as Jacoby works with Fowler again to take the front of the field.
And that shows you just how much feathering of the throttle and how much lifting's going on up at the front of the field. That's why that secondary pack caught them so quickly off for the pit stops. When you're going 2-3 wide, you're not really putting down hot laps. You're racing. That's why it's easy enough for the 24 to make up that huge margin. He was drafted with the 5 to make it happen. Look at Miller now bullying his way to the inside. And Jacoby saw that. Didn't want to jeopardize Fowler, so he moves up to bring the 22 with him. There is that number 78, which is Matt Miller losing his lap. He'll be the only car on track that is not on the lead lap. And you're right to the point with the 24 wanting to get into the mix. That, yes, all those drivers have intentionally stayed back, not been in this battle for the race lead. And that 2 or 3 second margin is good, because if there's a wreck, you need some time to slow down to not be involved in it, or there's really no point to hanging it back. But you cannot make that final pit stop from 3 or 4 seconds behind, even as many as 6 seconds behind. As you noted, they've all gotten to within 3 seconds, so that whole back pack has sped up, but you can't be making pit stops at that distance. They're going to have to catch up before they make that final trip down, and now they're starting to take more risks.
And you have to wonder how much fuel they were able to save, too, by being able to let off the gas a bit and fall back those extra couple seconds, because it might be important with the strategy. Expecting a lot of these drivers still to take 4 tires of fuel, but it could potentially make a difference in how long you're actually in the box. It's been seen by a couple of drivers, for example, if you take, say, no tires despite not wanting to take no tires, you might be able to save up to 7 tenths in pit stop, for example. So a couple things to watch for here, but about 37 laps to go this time by.
And again, still outside of the fuel window, so do not, make those decisions this early on. But with everybody starting to group up, and again, you can see no longer those huge differences between your top 10 and everybody else that we are on the horizon making this thing a real race. You thought of it, it's been good racing so far at Talladega. It's really only been 10 or a dozen cars fighting for the race lead. And as well, this thing's been going by at a blistering pace. It only won yellow, that early one that took out, of course, at least a handful of drivers, damaged Jason Jacoby. Kind of questioned at that point, Justin, would it hurt the 3 car? And the obvious answer has been no, because he's been mixing it up ever since then, seemingly without any restrictions.
It is going to hurt his fuel mileage a little bit, though. Going to put him maybe towards 29 laps at the most instead of 30, and that's going to become the question, who comes with them? You know, Fowler's been able to work with them much of this run this night, this evening here at Talladega, but it's going to be interesting who else comes with them. The main thing that's really helped him, though, has been that caution flag. If this thing went green all the way, that's where I would have been panicking at this point, if you were the leader much of this run.
You can see the 3 car now coming to the inside and way out of shape as he zigzagged as Connor Horn tried to throw a little bit of a block on him. It did not work, and these guys are not taking it easy on one another, especially the playoff drivers who have been going back and forth throughout this season. Only 2 on the bottom. It's Jacoby, pushed by Miller, outside line, has the 10 of Weekly, and one of Basemore, the 24 of Horn, the 22 of John Fowler. You still need to pit. These drivers looking like that these are the final 5 laps of the race the way they're going at it.
Yeah, some of them want to get as far ahead, I think, as they can here before they try and shuffle the way down to the bottom side. You can try and send it safe to the middle line, but the thing is, you need to make sure no one's ducking behind you to stay on the racetrack. So a lot of these cars just trying to get as much track position as they can, but Weekly having a heck of a battle in this race lead with a bit of that damage on that 10 machine. Just not enough suck, though, as Jacoby now left alone as Miller wants the race lead again.
He'll challenge once more. Jeremy Miller on contact. The 3 car got hit by Connor Horn. He gave him a shove, and that 3 machine almost ended up in the grass, and Horn doesn't skip a beat. He'll go to the middle line now, trying to squeeze his way through it. He'll get to the bumper of the 23. And once again, those team cars get together. Jacoby not willing to allow them to go to the bottom without a fight. The run down the back straightaway is going to be the difference maker here. Yes, it is. They'll tuck low, and That 24 machine again, just a lap prior, 2 laps prior, had the 3 car make an aggressive dive to his inside. I think that's the reason why Horn wasn't overly concerned with how hard he gave the 3 car a shot there.
Thing is, though, too, it wasn't the best of places to give a shot. You don't like to give him that hard of the trioval. 1, because the bumps, especially in that bottom line, but 2, the Chevrolet nose really had a huge amount of momentum shifting to the left side with its point. Adding the third point, too, of, it was right in the middle of that seam that made him very loose on that shove, right in the middle of a bump. We've seen cars on the iRacing service cause the big one by getting a bump that hard. It was a good amount of handling, though, for Jacoby to make sure he didn't lose the car. He's still going to get to the point, though, because Everhart wants to be up front again.
Look at the 24 machine, kind of takes the wind out of the sails. In the 23, he goes way up to the outside. Then Caleb Weekly finds himself in the middle, with Fowler wanting to work with him. So Connor Horn really just removed himself entirely from that situation. I wondered if he was maybe trying to go all the way to the back to get single file, maybe to prepare for pit stops, but doesn't seem like that's the case. He's still up there with the non-Dave Everhart, and once again, 3 lanes will race down to turn number 1, with Fowler just edging it out in front of the 3 machine of Jacoby. 1 car staying up top with the 10 of Caleb Weekly. It's in these races, you don't want to not care about the battle for the race lead, but when it swaps out every other lap, it's kind of to be expected. All of these moves, or maybe drivers experimented with who's going to work with me, what kind of moves work, how aggressive do I need to pitch when I'm on my own, when I've got 2 or 3 cars behind me on it outside to stay even. It's all experimenting. Doesn't mean anything right now. It's all these drivers trying to decide what moves are going to work for them when they go for the race lead, when this thing gets down into the final 10 and 5.
Yeah, and this is also, I think, also a time where you see where your friends are. Fowler and Jacoby, Shackelford and Horn now on the top side, Bazemore and Weekly. A lot of drivers are really getting their tandems together, it looks like, to see who's going to push them towards the finish. Fowler, he's going to get the push to the race lead again, up to the front with Jacoby.
Just like that, the musical chairs up front continues to cycle through. The only driver now out of the lead lap pack is Blake O'Connell, but a technical issue blinked out a little bit there, had to back off, and it was a smart move by him to make sure that nobody else may have gotten caught up in an incident, but he drops out of this one. The lead pack, those strands, the other 22 cars long, all the way from your race leader this time by, in fact, Jeremy Bazemore down pit road at lap number 60. Brotherton and Rittenberg will join him as they make their final stop at 2/3 distance.
They can make it from here, but the problem is I don't like the numbers here. Just 3 cars with them, and a much more conservative pit entry from Bazemore after overshooting it last time. They're going to need to hope that they get things timed up, because they're not going to get as much speed as, say, everybody's still on the track, as everyone takes the 4 tires and fuel as to be expected here because of how much time it takes to fill that tank.
We'll see if this is a strategy play, an intentional decision. In fact, Blake O'Connell, while he's down on pit road, deciding to go with left side tires and fuel, so that is his decision. And so bled back out. Lead group decided not to come down to the pit lane. So those 3 sticking with that original strategy that we mentioned. A 2-stopper, you split it into thirds, you pit at 60. It's all even. Your race leader's pushing it to what we expect to be about 65 to 70. That a more so modified strategy game as Z Everhart make that big swing to the outside, but nothing to really come from it. And how about this face? Andrew Ferdinand, as he gets into the picture, as Jacoby and Miller are trying to wreck each other at the front of the field. Ferdinand has been in the most precarious position he's really been in all season long. 10 points above the cut line, but in the overall look at the championship, 7th in the points. The problem tonight would really hurt the driver who has been by far and large the most dominant all season long. That's part of this playoff picture. I think that's a big reason why he backed out of it, but you do at some point have to get into the fray, and he has entered the top 10 for the first time tonight.
And we talked to him a bit about strategy a little bit on these super speedways. Daytona, his team wanted to stay in the front. He got flipped up into the sky. Talladega ran to the back, went up to the front, crashed anyway. Daytona night race, if I remember correctly, had a good run. Talladega now, he's been able to keep the car clean so far. So right now he's just playing, I think, the way he wants to. By the way, this is how rough the pit strategy went for those 3 cars. That just didn't hit the window, I think, the way I think they were hoping to. They're already falling a lap down.
But it's only 3 of them as well, so it's kind of a David versus Goliath. You're not going to have as much draft for that 3-car group as you are going to have for the big pack, and again, kind of pitted out of cycle. They do have some damage. 20 cars got the right rear beat up a little bit, so I don't know if that was an influence in the decision to come down to the pit lane. Do keep in mind, though, again, they're only going to be off of the lead lap temporarily. They are still losing time in the grand scheme of things. Once all these cars pit, they'll be well and easy back onto the lead lap, but I do not believe that they'll be within striking distance of challenging for the race lead, and they may indeed need a caution flag to actually get back into the real battle.
Yeah, but now it looks like since they've been able to suck up this draft for the pack, they've been able to get up to speed a little bit, but the timing, I don't know if it's going to line up. They might be at the very edge of the pack, but right now it's not looking great as some of the cars duck down to the pit lane.
And it is led by race leader Jason Jacoby. He is down pit road. He's smoking the tires at the line, but I think he got it down. He's got Fowler, Miller, Weekly, Horn, Shackelford, Eberhart, Jones down pit road with him. That's about half of the remaining cars. Do any of these drivers decide to put on 2? They've got time, given the amount of fuel they got to put in.
I'd still expect a lot of these drivers to take 4 tires, but if you take 2 tires, and this is why I think O'Connell did it, you can allow yourself to repair the damage as the second can of fuel gets put in. That 5-6 seconds of damage repair, by being able to do that, could be beneficial if you have something that's weighing you down from being up towards the front of your pack. Didn't see anyone that time by do it, as we see more of the leaders duck down.
This time it's Ferdinand who will lead the trip down to the pit lane. They're going to go from 190 to 55. Looks like this group was able to do it. It has Ferdinand, Jones, Novosad, Parrish, Kalis, Washington, all down to the pit lane. Again, that just about cycles everything through, just like we saw on the last exchange is right there. The 34 car overshoots the box. Big mistake for Novosad. He still can't get it corrected, and this is a big problem for the driver of the 34.
Yeah, he overshot his box by a stall and a half nearly, so he's going to potentially lose this draft. But a couple more drivers are trying to stretch the fuel here. You can see its teammates, in fact, McBride, George, Cadell, all trying to stretch it a bit more longer on the tank here. That's the longest they can go there. 24 to go as McBride sends it in hard. Might be close on speeding.
Well, no surprise that McBride, George, and Cadell came in together. That 3-car pack also waited a little bit longer before they pitted in that first exchange of green flag service, but 2 of them missed their stalls last time, and again, Thomas George too deep in the box and had to back it up. So 0 for 2 on clean entries in this race. They all go for 4 tires. That's not going to help their case any more than, they were already hindered by the fact that they weren't pitting with the race leaders. And now we are set to go racing at lap number 66. Green flag pit stops are done for the night, and it'll be Jeremy Miller kick it off what should be an incredible 24-lap run to the end.
Yes, this is going to be a heck of a battle. A lot of these teams that have been waiting at the back, you can tell by where Freenosh is at, for example. They've got the green light. They know they're good on fuel, including potentially for the GWCs, so they're going to fight for as many points as they can. But despite coming in on the road in some of the bad pit stops, George and Cadell just at the edge of the pack, and they're going to have a couple cars to help them. It's going to be curious to see if they can just carry enough momentum to keep going. I think they will. They're within that 1-second cushion.
Well, you saw that other group blend back out on the inside of turn 2, and it's just not enough. I mean, they didn't even get a chance to get up to speed, still on the apron, so that's going to be another set of race cars that are hoping to get a yellow flag. So it looks like the contention pool, as we get an updated look at the running order this time by drag race, outside line, a little bit better. Skylar Shackelford, that realistically cars that are in this battle are about the top 19, and I mean, even Rittenberg and then they're about 5-6 seconds back. I don't think they're going to be able to make up that time like the pack did earlier just because of the numbers. I think you're looking at the top 15 or so, but look at Jacoby and Fowler all night long. They've been an absolute menace to anybody just trying to hold a lane, snaking their way through to lead an outside charge.
Yeah, that Dirty Monkey Motorsports machine has been Jacoby's wingman all night long, and it's really been a good pusher. And he's been doing it kind of the right way. I think he's taking notes, actually, for that railroad broadcast. Mention being offset to the right, there's a reason. The way the tape is set up, especially on these cars, if you offset your bumps to the right, it gives yourself some air to be able to keep the car cool. If you go it completely flush with the back bumper, you risk overheating it much more quicker. So Fowler's been doing the bump drafts really accurate to what we've seen in real life all night, and has been doing it fairly efficiently.
Look at this, the Donnie car. I mean, he backs out of this one, so he'll tuck in line to the bottom, obviously not seeing the speed needed in the 3 and the 22. Don't want to stick with that line, and I think primarily trying to hook himself up with Dylan Jones, who they have been drafted with on several occasions tonight. So, you know, he's swinging around, trying to keep the clean air coming to that nose. Watch those temps, so when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, they could go all out, and they'll have a race car that'll actually get to the distance. First time in a while, actually. The inside held an advantage through an entire 2.66 mile lap around the racetrack. It's not going to happen for 2 in a row, though, because that 3 machine, the 22, the Donnie, they're all pushing down the back straightaway. And that 3 machine of Jacoby leading, he'll push speeds up to 197 into turn 3. Just seems they're struggling with only 2 cars on the outside versus the 3 on the bottom. These race leaders, again, I think are a lot more aggressive now, not feathering the throttle as much as I believe they were earlier.
Well, technically 4 at this point, but they got the numbers on that bottom side. You need, I think, really have at least 5 cars with how many drivers are lined up on the bottom side to make the middle line work. Jacoby, I think, has realized this. It's already cycled back behind those cars. It's going to regroup. Fowler, though, stuck up towards the front with Eberhard on that middle line as more cars now entering the picture. It's been about an 8 to 10 car battle in that lead group. Much the race now 13 up to maybe even 15 cars are within this draft.
And it's only going to continue to grow if George Cadell and Parrish can get into it. You can get to that maximum number of 16. And I think that may be where this thing caps out at. That's a lot of race cars that, despite having a pretty big incident early in this race, of course, you race at Talladega, you're always concerned about the big one. As Eberhard tucks to the inside of Fowler, and they'll swap out lead position on the outside row. Don't think Fowler minded that much because he gets back together with the Jason Jacoby. But even though he had that wreck early, he took out a lot of cars. In the grand scheme of things, majority of the field's still in this, and we rarely finish races at Talladega with the majority of the field unscathed inside now with 20 laps to go. These drivers all now trying to position themselves for the run to the end.
And right now you can see how much they're shuffling. Again, they're good on the field. So this aggression's going to keep on going up and up and up. It's just a matter of how do you balance it? When do you time up your runs? When do you decide to try and save some air for the nose? When do you decide to go and push yourself up towards the front of the pack? Or try and get track position or push a teammate or push someone in front of you. A lot of these drivers are doing that. The 90 of Eberhard finding a teammate of Washington, for example, now with that middle line.
The middle line's got the strength in numbers with Parrish, with the 8 car Cameron. They go 3 of Jones as well. 4 on the bottom, 2 up top, but 5 dead center. And they'll drag race down the back straightaway. It's been Miller who, leading on the inside, has kind of had the control position for some time now. Eberhard is clear with the Donnie in Washington. Do they tuck to the bottom? Only space for 1. And door banging now is Miller. He'll get into the side of the Donnie in Washington. And what a save by both of those drivers to stay in this thing.
A very good save there for Miller. You've seen it from the onboard. Just a bit too much down there while one driver pushed a bit too much up there between Washington and Miller. And that could have been disastrous if Miller overcorrected a touch bit more. we're still going with 16 to go this time by.
This race again has been pretty, I don't think conservative is the way to put it, because we've seen battles for the race lead all night long, but it has been smart. A lot of drivers, while still going out there and racing, have been smart about it. They haven't really thrown total caution to the wind, and that's even with a couple of door slams and some pretty good bumper shunts here and there. But this is where it all starts to go out the window, and you got to be concerned now with every move you make. Here to the outside, Miller goes, he's got help, oh, and contact again! He nearly came across the nose of Washington a few times now. Drivers have nearly got sent off at the front of the 24.
And again, nose wasn't lined up with that pointed edge. And in the middle of the triangle, it's hard to keep your line when getting bumped, and that just pushed Miller on down. Another good save from the 23 to make sure and avoid a disaster here as they go three-car tangoing down the bottom line.
And a little bit more squirrely there with the 24 getting sandwiched between Washington and a 23 in front of him. Here comes Jacoby again. Pushed by Fowler. Parrish, no immediate support, is probably going to lose that fight for the outside line, and it may drop down to just 2x2. That's if they can get clear before Kamer comes in as backup. Again, you see all those red windshield banners. Those are your playoff drivers. None of them are already guaranteed a spot in the round of 8. With Daniel Eberhardt playing spoiler and win it at the Monster Mile next Monday, it's those drivers in red with the most on the line here late.
And that brings up a great question here of what do these drivers that are in a win to lock themselves in position do? Miller, one of the drivers that desperately needed below the cut line. This would really help him if he can take the checker flag to lock himself up to the round of 8. Horn, he wanted to win at Dover. He probably wants to win today and would be one of the favorites at Kansas, but very difficult with the 88 machine. He's now getting ditched though in the middle line because Washington and Shane Parrish say, I want to lead this race.
And they make their play, and they'll go to the very top. Here's where it starts to get dicey. 3 wide in the center of the quarter. You'll start to see drivers pinch a little bit more. Trying to get that extra, and there goes Parrish. He'll get turned. Shane Parrish into the inside wall. Left side, heavy damage. The rest of the field keeps it together. No caution, and we stay green.
And that bump just didn't line itself up. Parrish leaving too much bottom open, and Miller not willing to let him just hit that left rear and sent him down. You'll see this from the onboard. You'll see Miller had a huge run, more than a car length back, and Parrish didn't really commit to his line. He went both towards the middle and the bottom at the same time, and Miller didn't check up. And I don't think he wanted to send them, obviously. He just ended up hitting that left rear with the indecisiveness there at that time. Now Parrish out of contention. We are still green, though.
And again, you look at the big picture, it does not affect your playoff drivers who are still in this thing. A lot of them have dodged some bullets tonight, but I mean, they nearly wrecked it in 3 and 4, just trying to keep it going. Shane Parrish, though, still running, hoping he can catch yellow to get back in this one. Again, Jacoby, not to sound like a broken record, but it's Jacoby Fowler up on that third line. Leadage Ein joining them as well. They'll clear the Donnie to Washington in the middle. All the way to the inside is Fowler. Not clear on Kamer yet. He gets sideways. It ends up on the apron to recover, and it is John Fowler now to the race lead at 79.
This is not going to last for long again. Look again on the bottom side. 2 more H's cars hooked up. And Kyle Kamer, he's looking to try and get himself forward. Dylan C. Jones is working with them. While Freenosh and Eberhardt line up on the top side while Horn pulls the ejector's cord.
And that supporter against lack of support on the inside line is going to be the big beneficiary here for the Fowler and Jacoby duo. I questioned it some nearly 50 laps ago, maybe even more at this point. But it's clear they're working together. We've seen a handful of other alliances. When does that agreement end? Is it 5 to go? Is it the white flag? Is it coming out of the trial vote of the checkered flag? So far they're loyal, and there's contact. The 23's into the outside wall. It's Miller. Shackelford gets hurt as well. Miller will spin to the apron, and he hits the car again. Still no caution, and somehow we're still green.
And both of them are just fighting for the same piece of real estate, wanting that middle line. Miller tried to shove his own teammate off that line. Some drivers aren't willing to give that up, though. Take a look at this here. You can see Shackelford. I don't think he's expecting Miller to try and squeeze him out. They make that contact door to door. Both of them hit their noses into the fence. And now both of them are out of contention this race. Miller, who needed his victory, and Shackelford, who was in a good position. Both out of contention. Both of them playoff drivers.
And that is big, big for them. Again, still on track in the literal sense, but heavily damaged. And Skylar Shackelford may have a black flag for damage. He comes down to pit road while Miller stays on track. So those are two more drivers that have been mixing it up towards the front of the field all night long, eliminated from the picture as we are inside of the final 10 laps from Talladega Super Speedway. The three cars on the outside of Jacoby. He seems to be kind of buying his time. He doesn't want to get locked into the inside, where you see now a lot of drivers are all on each other's bumper. Eberhardt swings high, tucks low. Everybody trying to find the right spot to be in, as Kyle Kamer is the one with the target on his back.
I think they're also seeing that three cars have had trouble in this lead pack in the past 5 laps or so. They don't want to be the next one, so I think they're just trying to reassess things and try time up. Where do we go for this run? If we time this up at the wrong moment, we could lose this race. It's all about the timing at this point. You mentioned the alliances. It's also important when you make that pass. If you do it too early, that could lose you the race. The Aegis cars in control of the front of the lead pack, though. Majority of the top 10 is now theirs.
You can see a lot of drivers really pushing the limit now. Jacoby almost fenced it on his own there into 3, just trying to not have to lift out with that race car, maybe not handling it 100%. Into the corner. It's David Washington leading this race, this time by 8 more laps to go. A friendly face to the outside with the non-teed machine pushed is Eric Stanford. The Donnie of Everhart helps him through the corner as well. Eric Stanford, playoff driver, could be getting some help here from those non-playoff teammates.
Yes, that's going to be very crucial as well, to see who's going to be able to help. I think if you're the non-playoff drivers, it's going to definitely be a lot of those drivers might be helping teammates here if they have the chance. If they have a chance for the win, I think they might take that chance for the victory here. But it's going to be curious to see what happens here. There's still 7 to go with a lot of shuffling, and Stanford in control of this field, and a lot of drivers wanting to punch their tickets to the round of 8.
Of course, this is the point in years past where we would say 4 laps to go or else the yellow would end it. But as we've seen on a few occasions in 2019, with the green to white checker rule implemented, we will have a couple of shots at overtime if it is so required. And when you think of that rule, this is the kind of racetrack that immediately comes to mind. The Donnie to Washington goes to the outside of Stanford. The Donnie with a big run, not going to stay with him. He'll go 3 wide for the lead. And with the head of steam, how about Daniel Everhart gets around all of them and goes to the point, but does not want to stay on the bottom. He feels like if he gets down there, he could get boxed in, so he'll go back to the outside and give it away in contact. Jacoby gets into him. Everhart into the inside wall. Kamer is into the fence with him. So is Dylan Jones. But for the 3rd time, it is off the racing surface, so we stay green for now.
It's on the racing surface right now, but just staying green somehow. Take a look at this, though. The reason why Everhart cut from the bottom to the top, he's seen Jacoby's run coming. Him and Fowler were coming. Jacoby didn't lift. And that came off the corner exit, where you don't want to get a huge shot like that. It sends 3 of those cars down to the inside wall. And this is going to really shake things up now with some of those cars collected.
Kamer and Jones, playoff drivers, were involved in that one. Look at the replay. You'll see the shot coming. And we talked earlier about drivers making blocks and drivers lifting. Not in this case. And for Jason Jacoby, I don't think he could have lifted even if he wanted to. He had the 22 with John Fowler pushing him that entire time. You're not going to get away with blocking a lane 5 to 10 miles an hour slower inside of the final 10 laps at Talladega. It is not how this is going to work. And again, more playoff drivers pay the price. And for a moment now, this race has been divided up to only 6 cars left in the lead pack.
Yes, and there's still those cars that are behind them, too, that might have a chance if things go crazy. That includes some of the drivers that were just at the edge of the lead lap, about 10 laps to go. Cadell, George, Washington, and Horn are all watching this, licking their chops if anything goes awry. But there's still a lot of hungry cars in this pack, including that tandem of Fowler and Jake Jacoby that are lined up still on that top line, coming to 4 to go this time by.
That time by, 4 laps to go from Dega. Middle race at around 12 in this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series powered by SimRacers for Mental Health Playoffs. Any playoff driver still remaining that can get a checkered flag tonight, it's an automatic ticket into the round of 8. But I think if you're still on track now, we mentioned this point earlier, a win at Talladega is basically just staying on the racetrack, especially with the last couple of incidents involving playoff drivers and not triggering caution flags, meaning that their nights are, for all intents and purposes, done. They don't get a yellow to reset and try to ride back around with. Still not guaranteeing, though, that this thing will stay clean to the end as more drivers join the party. 10 cars fighting for the race win. 3 more laps to go.
And that's Cadell, George, and Horn that all drop back. They're now pressing the go button here. They want to make this move and make it now. And this is a good opportunity. They got the numbers on that top line. It's the question of, can they get the run, and can they work together long enough to get themselves together?
George came into tonight 8th in the championship. Cadell in 12th, both of them needing a good result to prime themselves to keep their championship hopes alive through Kansas next Monday night. But they're in an awfully risky situation now. How important to you are points versus racing for that ticket and a checkered flag tonight? Popsicle 6 of the year now. 2 laps to go at Talladega. It is still Stanford leading the inside. The 22 of Fowler in the middle. And the 69 of Cadell up top. But he and George lose that momentum. And they'll drop back now as they come into turn 2.
A lot of these drivers now inside this group, like Cadell, like George. Yes, they'd like the points, but they will be hungry to take this checker flag. If they see the chance for them to take the win, I think they're going to take it here. But everyone's timing themselves up for this last one. Coming down to 1.2 laps to go, coming to the white flag this time.
Weird to see that 3 of Jason Jacoby drop back. He didn't like the spot he was in. He drops away to the back of this lead group as John Fowler looks to make this race official. White flag in the air. Last lap at Talladega. They'll navigate lap traffic up high. No problem there. Small advantage to the inside. It's Stanford by a car length, but look for the run on the outside as they rocket out of 2 down the back straightaway.
Keep an eye, though, on the third line as that develops here. Big shot, though, for Ferry-Nosh. That just jumping up the entire bottom line. This is going to make things very interesting. Kalis gets turned.
The 43 car gets dumped, but it is the white flag, so we stay green. Horn doesn't have a lot of help at the outside. It'll be Fowler, pushed by Stanford, with Ferry-Nosh trailing. Coming to the checkered flag at Talladega. Stanford goes to the outside. Oh, they're going to wreck behind. And Fowler's going to get turned. Eric Stanford and Cadell. Photo finish. And Eric Stanford wins at Talladega.
How about that for a crazy finish? Stanford went for the run at the last moment, and everybody just started colliding with one another in that trial vault. Fowler tried to come up to block Stanford. Stanford didn't lift. Horn tried to block Cadell. Cadell didn't lift. Absolute madness coming to the stripe as you see this entire sequence here. It all started really with that bottom light getting checked up midway down the backstretch, a bad bump for the 43 machine, and then that just seemed to turn on the crazy switch for the final half a lap here at Talladega.
You can see the race down the back straightaway. There is the bobble for Ferdinand. At this point, we thought the bottom lane was done. You see the 10 and the 43 not willing to lift. The 10 takes out Kalist, but then Fowler comes down. All of a sudden, you're bunched back up again. As you look off to the back of the 22, he had to know that Stanford was going to make the move to the outside. Here's the dive now as he clears the 24. He goes high, and then we start wrecking. Horn gets loosened up. He takes out Ferdinand, and it is contact there with the 19 of Stanford, it looks like, coming down and turning the 22 car. So this race is tentatively unofficial, pending race control to look it over. Again, there is a lot of contact on that last lap, but it is not exclusive to the cars we saw wrecking on the front straightaway. I mean, they were wrecking all the way to the back. Looked like Horn threw a block to Cadell, took him out. That's why Ferdinand and George are taken out. But Stanford making contact with Fowler to go on to get the race win.
The thing is, though, this is Stanford's first win of the season, too. And we were talking about this a couple times, wondering, when are you going to be able to break your way through? I don't think this is what he was expecting tonight, but this is going to get him to the round of 8 with victory number 1 of 2019.
It doesn't matter how you do it, the stat sheet will still say race winner in 2019. Eric Stanford was the last driver to make the cut in the round of 16, finished in that number 12 spot to make it this far, and now he has punched his ticket into the round of 8. As he burns it down and celebrates on the front straightaway, we'll take a quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll talk with your top finishers, reset the points for round of 12 finale next Monday night from the Kansas Speedway. You're watching LSR TV's coverage of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series post-race at Talladega when we come back.
This is Jim Beaver, voice of the Lucas Oil Off-Road Racing Series. Introducing Pro 2 and Pro 4 trucks on iRacing. Game on!
And back live from the virtual Talladega Super Speedway, where we are nearly all the way through the round of 12. What a finish tonight on the plate track as Eric Stanford punches his ticket into the round of 8. We'll get set to talk points and more in just a moment, but first I want to welcome you back into the LSR TV booth. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, and Randy Chennis with you. Let's go trackside and take a look at this evening's Ford Entertainment Group full race results. Eric Stanford gets the win, margin of victory 0.037 seconds to Cadell, who comes home P2. Both of those drivers fighting for that automatic bid into the next round. Cadell comes up just shy, and then it's your guess who was able to make it all the way to the start-finish line. Total chaos on the last lap. Jason Jacoby comes home third with Caleb Weekly and Thomas George through your top 5. Connor Horn, Andrew Frenage, David Washington, John Fowler, oh so close to the win tonight, ends up P9. And McBride will be the one to round out your top 10.
Ty Novosad salvaged a bad pit stop on his last stop of the night, with an 11th place finish. Sean Kalis getting turned on the last lap, finished in 12th. Scott Brotherton 13th. Andrew T. Jones in 14th, with Jeremy Bazemore rounding up the top 15 finishing positions. 47 seconds back of the winner was Kyle Kamer 16th. The last driver won on the lead lap was Blake O'Connell. After technical issues, still finished in 17th. First driver a lap down after his crash, Daniel Everhart, along with Jeremy E. Miller. Both of them having rough races. Miller needing some good points. Shackelford rounds out the top 20.
And continuing on through, the rest of these cars don't make it all the way, and a lot of them wrecked very late. One of them, Dylan Jones, a big championship player, came into tonight third. He's going to be an awfully lot more friendly with that cut line going into Kansas with that finish. Shane Parrish comes home 22nd, and Jeremy Rittenberg is 23rd. These cars wrecked out a lot earlier in the night. It includes Matt Miller, P24, and then those that were involved in the one and only yellow tonight. Scott McClendon, 25th. Tom Morano, 26th, and Cody Griffin in P number 27. That's a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group full race results. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the over 600 iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group build. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Go online to fegpc.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. Standing by in Talladega Superspeedway Victory Lane is the driver of the number 19 machine, Eric Stanford, victorious tonight in the round of 12. He punches his ticket on through, and Eric, your playoff hopes will stay alive. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us about this race. We saw that one yellow very early on, and admittedly, we probably could have had a handful of other ones. A lot of chaos late. No cautions were triggered by the sim, and it gave you an opportunity to race for the win and make that late move coming to the tri-oval.
Yeah, I thought for sure we'd end up with more cautions during that race because there was a couple other bigger ones that happened, but nothing came out. And through most of that beginning of the race, we pretty much just rode in the back the whole time, just trying to stay away from all the wrecks that we thought were going to happen, but never did. And luckily, we came back there at the end and got the win.
Obviously, I mentioned as you were doing the celebration there that, these playoffs could be decided by razor-thin margins. You just made that cut to advance out of the 16, finishing in that 13th, 12th position, I should say. So just above the cut line, and not only does this win move you past Kansas, of course, you were already in a pretty good position, courtesy of your result at Dover a week ago. You're already plus 11 coming into tonight. So, we're in a good position as is. But I think the big thing here is you'll get 3 bonus points and will be one of the highest ranked drivers, either the only leader or at least tied, depending on if a playoff driver wins again next week, going into the round of 8. So now that you really don't have to stress about Kansas, how do you feel about that trio of tracks coming up for the next round as you look to kind of play spoiler here and to be the underdog to go for a championship?
Yeah, should be pretty good next 3 for me. There's 3 tracks that I'm pretty good at. I know that first round, though, I'm just trying to get by with those ones. Charlotte was the one I was worried about. So what do we got? Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix. Yeah, I think Martinsville will be my trouble race, but the other two I should be okay. So hopefully we can run pretty well, get into that championship 4.
We look forward to seeing it. We always say that with this style of playoff, that you know, regular season performance, and even in this case, round of 16 performance, you got to play the rounds, you got to play the cards that you're dealt. And tonight, well, you become the first playoff driver to win in the round of 12. Eric, it's a huge win for you, not just to get into Full Throttle Cup Series victory lane, but of course the timing and all of this in the grand scheme of things. So we'll let you jet and celebrate. Before we do, who do you want to say hi to from victory lane?
Well, thank everybody over the team. Daniel, Dave, Andrew, Dylan, Shane, Sean for sponsoring the cars, sksimracing.com. My wife, she puts up with me doing this. I got to thank her the most.
Absolutely, and tonight it all comes to fruition, Eric. Again, congratulations on the race win. Certainly we'll catch you next week at Kansas, but again, congrats on moving on to the round of 8. Excited to see what this 19 team has still got in it.
Thanks, me too.
The race winner tonight at Talladega, Eric Stanford, first playoff driver to win this round. He is going on. Jonathan Cadell had some work to do coming into tonight, Justin, and the P2 helps him a lot.
Yeah, really good points tonight and was in contention for the win. But it was a very hectic final 10 laps. You were one of the teams and drivers that were staying back at the time when the crazy switch started slowly getting turned. What was going through your head as those 10 laps started ticking down and you were slowly but surely getting yourself into winning contention?
Oh, man, I was trying the Denny Hamlin strategy. Just let everyone else take themselves out and eventually just get up there and see what you got. And, yeah, it worked out. I mean, it was a weird way to get second, man, through the grass there. I was aiming for the cone, trying to make it as short as I could. And, man, just came up short, man. I really needed that win, but definitely needed a second place, too.
Yeah, the second place finish really helped you in the point standings here, but it was an absolutely crazy race. You're one of the teams, though, that wanted to stay back from the pack. Was that your team's strategy? Try and keep the car clean for, well, the final lap, which ended up going bonkers? And basically, how would you judge how that went tonight as this race progressed and as you were being able to get up to the lead pack at the end of each pit window?
Oh, yeah, like I said, we're just hanging out back there. Wanted to make sure we stuck with the draft, and with this new package, it's really easy to stick with the draft. I was running half throttle most of the race, and that's why you saw us pitting a lap after everyone else, because you could just run half throttle and keep up with the draft. So I was like, let them take each other out, man. Just see what they do, and they started doing it, and I got the reflexes of a cat and the speed of a mongoose, man. I was just avoiding wrecks like crazy, and Connor Horn tried to pull a Carl Edwards on me there in the tri-oval, and that was really the only time I got in trouble today, but luckily it pushed me across the line in second, so I can't complain.
On that point, we're going to go to Kansas next for 125 laps. That's the cutoff race. 187.5 miles at that track. Your thoughts going back to the mile-and-a-half circuit in Kansas?
I hate Kansas. It's the worst track on the service. You got to run up top. Now with this new cut package, you got to run on the bottom. It's going to be a lot of wrecks. I'm going to try the same strategy again.
We'll see how the strategy works out in that race. Should be an interesting one. Is there anyone you want to thank for being a part of your good finish today? I believe you actually also got a new sponsor on the car as well.
Yeah, welcome to Extreme Sim Racing. The first week on the car, we got to pull off a second place for them. Wanted to bring home the W, but go to extremesimracing.com. Save yourself 5% by using promo code StillHorseLive. All right, I'd like to thank the United States Navy for sending me to a hotel for the last 2 weeks, giving me crappy Wi-Fi and making me drop out of the last 2 races. So I had to perform. So thank those guys too, and thank my teammates at Still Horse Racing and all my viewers over at Still Horse Live, and you guys for putting on a good show.
Thank you very much for the time, Jonathan. I can tell you're in a very happy mood after this one.
Yeah, I've had a few natties.
Okay, on that note, that's Jonathan Dell in a very good and positive mood. Evan, back to you.
Is feeling good, in a good spot as he looks to advance into the round of 8 with that race at Kansas. And natty light's not on the car, so you got to compensate for that. Moving on to third place finisher tonight, Jason Jacoby comes home with a podium. And Jason, congratulations on the good result. You had a good points buffer coming into tonight, so I figured maybe the strategy would be protect the points buffer and hang out in the back, but that was not on the itinerary. You were up racing, but John there for the majority of the night. Just talk us through the strategy.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Evan. Huge shout out to Mr. John Fowler. Love the guy. We've been friends for a while, and we planned earlier this week or last week that this week, tonight, we'd work together and have some fun. And the strategy, I was actually really trying hard to play it safe and go save points, and try to make sure I was there at the end. But there were a lot of moves I could have made that I didn't make because I was really saving for points. But no, I'm just kidding. I do want to thank everyone for watching. Huge thanks to everyone. Buddy Danny Watson really wanted me to give a shout out to him and his grandfather. Danny, we're thinking about you guys. But yeah, no, the strategy was just have fun, man. That was all it was. And we were talking about, I hate to bring this into it, but some guys get real serious about this, take it way too seriously. They voice their frustrations over the radio in sim. And I don't know if any of that was talked about. I know it's been talked about in previous interviews before, but I'm just happy. We're just out there to have fun, despite some guys getting real upset over what happens on the sim racetrack,
Well, this race looked like it was pretty clean for the majority. We had that one wreck early on, and then, of course, late in this one, we did see some incidents, but none of them triggered a caution flag. So, lost in that chaos where you got cars wrecking and you're trying to stay in it, did that kind of stress you out late? Because it seemed like, in the grand scheme of things, you were able to kind of stick to the strategy and execute things pretty well, all things considered. Yeah,
it's just I'm very lucky to be doing this, and I just had faith the whole time that it would work out in the end. And I wanted to see John get the win too. My strategy was kind of, at the end, if John was up front, let him get the win. Unless I had a nose out, then I'd try to keep my foot in it enough to get it. But I really want to. What happened at the end there was I started to get hot, and I'm like, John, you go for it, buddy, and try to keep it up there and get that win. And congrats to Eric on the win. I think John almost had it there, but yeah, sorry for bringing the negative aspect into it. But it's just we're all very blessed to be able to do this stuff, man. I know a lot of my viewers over on my channel wish they could be sim racing, and I want to thank Ford Entertainment Group, FPGPC.net, because he helps people get into sim racing for the lowest price guaranteed. Because a lot of people can't afford it, so he makes it lowest prices possible, so people can get into sim racing. Get a new computer, FPGPC.net. So I think that's all. It was just fun, man. The whole race was fun.
It looks like you will be some 29 points above the cut line as we head to Kansas. Pretty much keep the race car on track, get it to the green flag, and the 2019 championship hunt will continue. Any thoughts on that one?
Oh, yes. I'm not. So we're at Kansas next week. Is that right, Evan?
Yep.
Man, I love that track. That is almost like Talladega in a sense, where you can go 3 wide, 4 wide, 5, you have a lot of fun out there. I love this package and what you can do at that track with this package. So if I don't, take myself out early in the race, I think we can have a lot of fun and put on a show. Talladega and Kansas are a lot different in a way, but at the same time, we can still put on some really good close racing. So I'm so looking forward to that one. That one is going to be a blast.
It should be an exciting one as well as you look to keep the hunt for the Full Throttle Cup underway. But tonight it is a P3 at Talladega Superspeedway. Jason, appreciate your time. Again, congrats, and we'll catch you next Monday night.
Evan, congrats to you on all your success, buddy. And Justin, congrats on your win on NAS last night. See you guys.
Jason Jacoby, your third place finisher tonight at Dega. He is tied for the highest spot in the points, excluding Eric Stanford, who's got the race win, as he looks to advance in the round of 12 finale next Monday night. Let's talk about those very championship points, Justin. So Eric Stanford launches all the way to the top. His ticket is punched. We will see him when the round of 8 kicks off at Martinsville. Of course, he'll still be on track next week, but that one has no effect unless, of course, he goes for the race win. He can snag himself 3 more bonus points. But below them, you've got Connor Horan and Jason Jacoby tied for 29 points above the cut line. Thomas George rockets up 4 spots to 4th in the championship. Andrew Friedage, 19 to the good in 5th. McBride is P6, Jones is P7, and Jonathan Cadell, making up for that dropout last week, goes above the cut line. He is in the 8th and final transfer position, some 7 points ahead of Brian Chambliss, who DNS's tonight, doesn't take the start. He drops below. He is down by 9. Kamer minus 10. Shackelford minus 11. And Jeremy Miller minus 13. Those are the drivers with work to do.
And don't forget, Brian Chambliss didn't even race tonight. He's now minus 39. He was in the top half of the points entering tonight. This is a huge deficit for him and puts him now into a win and need to get in situation. But those incidents in the final 10 laps or so really hurt Shackelford and Miller the most in the points. There's a lot to watch for, that's to say the very least, when we go to Kansas for the cutoff race next week.
And let's talk about Kansas, because it's funny. You talked to Jonathan Cadell. He's not a fan of Kansas. I talked to Jason Jacoby. He loves it. So, it does drive very differently with this package. But again, the way the racetrack works, you got to go way up against the fence. And it's just the way that this package, and, even though it is an intermediate racetrack and often gets labeled a cookie cutter, they do have their own I guess, characteristics, if you will. But, there is a lot on the line in that race because we kind of get back to normal. It's been a while, since we've had a intermediate race back to Vegas for the playoff opener. It's been Richmond, the Roval, Dover, Dega. So for as much of the schedule as these intermediate racetracks make up, no round in the playoffs has more than one of them. Vegas was for the round of 16. We get Kansas for the round of 12, and Texas is the token cookie cutter for the round of 8. So you do have those races like tonight where somebody like an Eric Stanford can come in and get the race win. You almost saw John Fowler come in and steal the race win, right? So it's a little bit more open. But we do have that one race. Not that I want to say it's a safe race, Justin, because it is the cut race. But I think drivers have a much better idea going into that one of what they are going to have speed-wise.
Yeah, and a lot of the guys that are below that cut line are good speed-wise. Cadell said himself he's expecting to stay towards the back. But definitely keep an eye on a few of those drivers, that's for sure. The fight for who gets the secured spot, though, and the victory for the cutoff race is going to be the one that's going to be interesting. We know how Horn and Freenosh are usually some of the favorites on the mile and a halves all season long. It's going to be an interesting battle to see how those two shape out and if someone else can break their way into the picture based on strategy.
And of course, if somebody like a Chambliss, Kamer, Shackelford, or Miller could get a race win, all of a sudden that takes a spot away for the drivers in the top 8 already. So then you could be looking at Dylan Jones and Jonathan Cadell for a cut line right now, 7th and 8th. If a driver below them wins, that all of a sudden becomes 8-9. They're separated by only 2 points. So there's a lot of question marks going into the race at Kansas, but that is next week. Until then, that's it for us here tonight from Talladega Super Speedway. Encourage you to stay up to date with us by going online to LiveSimRacing.com and by engaging with us on social media. You can give us a like over at Facebook.com/LSRTV official and on Twitter at LSRTV for more information. Got a handful of new series coming out, and that'll be on broadcasting here live in a couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that info coming shortly. But until next time, on behalf of the entire team at LSRTV, for the folks behind the scenes and for the broadcast team tonight, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Justin Prince, and our producer, Randy Janis, want to thank you for tuning in, and congratulations to Eric Stanford, race winner tonight at Talladega. We'll leave you with a look once more at that last lap, but the series rolls on to the round of 12 finale at Kansas Speedway. That's next Monday, October the 21st. That race at every race of the full throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series going to be found right here on LSR TV, the iRacing Sports Network. Until then, good night from Talladega, where it's Stanford in victory lane.